So here we start. Welcome to Berlin, Medea. Um, the spot is not only to...
Wait, can we stop? It would be easier for me if you were on that side,
Yeah,
so I
okay.
could look at both of
Yeah,
you
yeah,
over there.
yeah.
So we both stand here.
Okay.
Okay. So again, welcome to Berlin. I think you're not only here in Berlin for introducing your book about drones. I think one of the aspects will be to get cooperation with German peace activists. And what will happen in those 4 or 5 days you are here in our country?
We've been building up a movement in the United States against the use of weaponized drones, but we need help from the rest of the world. And Europe is particularly important for us, and especially Germany, since the U.S. has such large base here in Germany that is actually used for relaying the communications and targeting the people who will be victims of these drone strikes. So it's important for us to make these links. And I think in the week that I'm here, I'm meeting with members of elected officials from the different parties, with people from various organizations, human rights groups, legal groups, and then we have a Trans-Europe meeting that will be happening with people from 8 different countries that are coming to discuss how do we strengthen this campaign, how do we really turn it into a global movement against the use of killer drones.
When will that happen, that kind of conference?
December 12th.
December 12th. In Stuttgart?
No, it's happening here in Berlin.
Okay. For example, just mentioning Stuttgart, I think Stuttgart as base of US AFRICOM is very important for the coordination of drone strikes in different parts of Africa.
And it's becoming more and more important. Part of this policy is not a policy to end war. It's a policy that really guarantees perpetual war. And attacking Al-Qaeda members in Afghanistan, which was supposed to be the reason the U.S. invaded Afghanistan, meant that then Taliban crossed over and Al-Qaeda members into Pakistan. The U.S. attacks them in Pakistan through drone strikes, and then they move on to Yemen. The U.S. then attacks them in Yemen, and now they're moving into northern Africa. And so Africa is becoming more and more a focal point of the U.S., what it calls its war on terror, setting up bases for drones in places like the small African nation of Djibouti, in the Seychelles Islands, in Ethiopia, in Niger, and AFRICOM, which is the coordination for the U.S. military throughout Africa, with its base in Stuttgart, is going to become more and more critical in the way the U.S. is implementing its new kind of warfare.
So what can we do as Germans to work against that?
There won't be any kind of basic solution. What do you think?
Well, I think we're already having a lot of success in the United States. You know, we worked very hard for years to try to stop a war in Iraq, and we're unsuccessful. We tried for years to stop a war in Afghanistan, and we're not successful. Suddenly we're having a lot of successes because the American people are very much against continued war. We see trillions of dollars that have been wasted in wars, while our own financial situation is very critical. We see thousands of U.S. military who have been killed in these wars without making the lives of people in Iraq or Afghanistan any better. So there is a general sense of the Americans being very skeptical. Because of that, we managed to keep the U.S. out of military intervention in Syria. We managed to push for negotiations when it comes to Iran instead of war. And we are forcing our government to at least reduce the number of drone strikes and pay more attention to the issue of civilian casualties. I think we are also changing public opinion in the United States, which used to be overwhelmingly in favor of drones. and now has come down significantly to maybe 60%. Still a majority of Americans, but not the overwhelming majority like it used to be. So I think we have had success, and we will continue if we continue to build up within the U.S. and have more allies. Germans can do a lot. I've been meeting with members of the government here who say that they're going to have a commission that will be formed in the new government to look into the relationship between Germany and the United States as far as German support for the U.S. in identifying targets for drone killing, using the satellite relay system for communications, and then this is related very much, I think, to the U.S. issue of spying within Germany as well. So there is a growing sentiment among the German public that they want answers to these questions. And I think the German public has done a very good job so far of forcing the German government to refrain from buying weaponized drones. There is, I think this has, the government of Germany, I think, would like to get on the bandwagon and buy their own weaponized drones and join the club. But because there is so much opposition among the public and the opposition parties, it has slowed this process down. So we need Germans to continue to put the pressure on the German government not to buy weaponized drones, and then to expose more what is really complicity in murder of the German government, and get these issues out into the open, and embarrass the German government for being so subservient to the United States in this policy.
That's a very good point. Isn't that, these drone killings, isn't that targeted murder? I mean, that's a dream of any mafia organization, that they can take out any, competition, any other thinking guy. This is crazy. This is killing.
Well, the U.S. has said that it's in a war on terror with al-Qaeda and associated forces, and has the right to go around and kill them wherever in the world it wants to. This is a very strange interpretation of international law, and it's a very dangerous one, because if the U.S. can do it, why can't the Chinese, why can't the Russians, why can't anybody? And so, yes, we are very concerned about not only what our government is doing, but the model that it's setting for the rest of the world.
Looking at the forces behind, I think one of the problems definitely is the combination and cooperation between the military and the war industry, defense industry. I think this is a very hard thing. They are making a lot of bucks from that new technology. They are dreaming about a military revolution without their own kids getting being victimized in a war, doing the war from separate, secure buildings 4,000 miles away. But how can that combination be targeted from us as a peace movement?
Well, it's interesting, because I used to be against drones in general, even though I have my own little drone that I bought from somebody sent to me as a gift. But I'm starting to think differently about it, because I'm starting to think that perhaps with the new announcement by Amazon.com that they wanted to start using drones in the future to deliver packages, that there might be a lot of commercial profit to get out of drones. And maybe this is a good thing, because perhaps it will mean that the industry can start shifting away from killer drones into drones for commercial purposes. I think the industry is a very powerful one, just like the military-industrial complex is such a powerful one. You can't really stop it by cutting off the funds, because they have such a well-oiled machine where they give money to U.S. politicians, and those politicians in turn give our tax dollars to them. So perhaps if they can find another profit outlet in making drones that are not for dropping bombs, but dropping pizza to your house for lunch, it might be a better thing for humanity.
But isn't that the point, that the war machine is such a profitable thing, and that people start to realize that all these wars are maybe just fought, so some people get richer and the whole machine is just working, just making Halliburton and Co. Happy.
Actual, whoever else.
So isn't that a movement, what you're telling, that people realize we are not informed by the media, we are basically misinformed when it comes to war by the media, that people start to realize there's something going on, a well-oiled machine, and it's just working not for us.
It's actually a brilliant machine because they have managed to find through drones and these covert operations a way to keep war going behind the backs of the American people. Most Americans think we ended the war in Iraq, we're ending the war in Afghanistan. Basically, the war on terror has is coming to an end. And meanwhile, the U.S. is setting up bases for drones all over the Middle East, including in Saudi Arabia, which is a very interesting thing to look at because one of the reasons that Osama bin Laden gave for hating the United States was having U.S. bases in the Holy Lands in Saudi Arabia. George Bush, for all the terrible things he did, one smart thing he did in 2003 was to close the U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia and remove virtually all of U.S. troops from Saudi Arabia. And now we have Barack Obama in 2010 opening a base in Saudi Arabia for drones. We have drone bases in Qatar, we have drone bases in the Emirates, in Oman, in Northern Africa, even in the Pacific off the islands of Australia. So they are setting up the scene for use certainly of surveillance drones all over the world. And this is big business. This is a way for the war machine after the end of the war in Iraq and the closing down of a war in Afghanistan to find new outlets for their products. One of the other outlets for their products that is of great concern to many of us in the United States is they are trying very hard to sell these drones, and especially smaller versions of them, to police departments throughout the United States. There are 18,000 police departments. That's quite a lot of potential profits if they could sell to all of these police stations. Now, the budgets in the United States are under stress from the financial situation, and many police departments don't have money to go out and spend $100,000 on buying a relatively small drone. The Department of Homeland Security is actually giving money to police departments for them to buy drones. And while the police said they will be used for things like search and rescue to save lives, we are very concerned. Germans know well already what the NSA is doing in terms of spying not only on your chancellor but also on every single American. If we have drones in the sky over our neighborhoods, they will turn the U.S. into a 24/7 surveillance society. And what we are trying to do is unite the people who are concerned about their privacy issues with the peace movement that is concerned about killing people overseas. And together we will be much stronger in combating this military-industrial surveillance complex.
Other dimension, a little nightmarish idea. What will happen if there aren't any soldiers anymore? If the industry is running and operating their own drones? Not only surveillance drones, also ammunition, armed drones, and doing a warfare without any kind of regulation. It already happens that maybe there will be a ratio of 50% military and 50% contractors doing the job, but this rate, I guess, will increase. Or what is your opinion about that? The contractor question, I mean.
There has been an amazing rise in the percentage of military activities being done by private contractors. And this has finally started to raise some issues, not only among the American public, but within Congress. for the first times, we are seeing cuts in the military budget. And as that military budget is being cut, people even within the military are questioning, well, who is going to be among the ones to get cut first? Shouldn't it be the contractors and not people within the military itself? So it's creating some kind of division, which is good, which is starting to surface. But you bring up the issue of making war even without soldiers,
Yeah.
brings up this issue of totally autonomous killer robots that could either be flying in the sky or could be on the ground, like tanks without anybody driving them. And this technology is very close to being perfected, and that's why there is a campaign called Stop the Killer Robots that has a lot of European groups involved in it, U.S. groups, trying to get the UN to do a ban on autonomous weapons before they are even deployed.
But isn't that a hard thing to do? Because basically it's a dream of any military planner to have this war, this kind of automatic war, no soldiers dead coming home, no post-traumatic trauma, nothing. These people are basically educated by the gaming industry, and they come with their skills right
Joystick
away. Joysticks,
Yeah.
and they're perfect killers.
I'm not saying this is easy. I go to the conventions of these lobby groups when I am allowed in. I usually get kicked out of them, but and you see the kinds of things that they are promoting are really taking from science fiction and going even further. So it is very scary to think of the potential that's out there. I'm an activist, so I have to be an optimist. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't get up every morning and do this work. And my optimism is that this is not the society that most people want to live in. And when I look at finally seeing the American people rise up against things like U.S. involvement in the war in Syria, and it goes across party lines. It's not anything that can be defined as leftists. There's alliances now with libertarians, with leftists, with people that have no committed ideologies. And I think it's up to us, really, to form a stronger cross-partisan movement, especially in the United States. And it's happening. We see the reaction against the surveillance state that is very strong. There's a real core value among Americans that privacy is an important issue for us. And I think if we do our job right, we can convince the American public that having drones flying over our heads by our police departments and the FBI and Border Patrol and all of these things is actually not a good thing for us. And in fact, there are many right-wingers, well, not many, but there are some right-wingers who have said that they will shoot drones out of the sky if they see them over their home. I am a peace person, so that would not be my first choice. But other people have talked about catching them in nets and burying them. And other people have talked about getting drone-free resolutions passed in their city and state legislatures. So there's many ways to go at this issue, but I think there is starting to be a very healthy debate and skepticism in the U.S.
Actually, it's a very easy thing to build an anti-drone. You need an iPhone, you need a little model, and then at some point you have to tell it, like, go after this, and then it will do it. And it's much cheaper than these drones, so that would be also an option.
Well, there's already people who have been hacking into the drones, from the Iranian government that brought down one of the most sophisticated U.S. spy planes to a professor at Texas with less than $1,000 worth of equipment showed the U.S. government how he could hack into the drones. So the hacker community is getting ready for drone warfare in the United States by hacking government drones.
isn't it kind of time for us people worldwide to realize that war in general is not for us? Nobody's fighting the war for us.
Yes, and that too, I think, is a movement whose time has come after the U.S. has now had 12 years of war post 9/11 attack, and you see Iraq in a disaster state, Afghanistan still one of the poorest and worst places to live in the world, and the American people wondering where did our trillions of dollars go. So I think there is a sentiment in even in the United States, which is one of the most pro-war countries around, that war is in the benefit of a small group of people who manufacture weapons and have contracts with the military, but not in the interests of the vast majority of Americans, nor in the interests of the majority of people of the world. When we look at the U.S. intervention in Libya, and that was for humanitarian reasons, and we see what a disastrous state Libya is in now, this also starts to convince people that even the concept of humanitarian war is a misguided concept.
Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank, Medea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the only time that you looked very skeptical is when I said maybe delivering the commercial use of drones might be a good thing.
Yeah, we got a specific term for that in German. Wie hat man gesagt? Conversion. Conversion
Yeah,
of former
military conversion, yeah.
military conversion.
Yeah.
And I'm very skeptical about that because I know the German unions. And it was a very interesting, not only debate, but there also were some inputs for the coastal line of Germany, for the ship industry, and they were coming up with specific options of conversion. They already were working on that. They were doing wind energy parks and stuff like that.
No, please, yeah.
But it only lasts, I think, 5 or 6 years. And then they were moving again back to the military production, and so I was looking a little bit skeptical because the skepticism is stemming from the German solution. It's not an ideological thing.
Yeah.
It's stemming from the development in Germany. And the other thing is, I see it's a very big international market. And there are not only the industry hopping on that, I think there are a lot of countries hopping on that bandwagon to get own things done. You know by yourself that the US is limiting the export of high technology, of high military technology, and so the other nations in competition against the US are creating their own stuff.
That's right. No, and especially the Israelis, who are the #1 exporters of drone technology, and then the Chinese, who are...
We didn't mention that in the interview, but not a problem at all. I think I got around about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That will fit. I only got 1 page for Junge Welt, and we will do, I think, the complete interview, uncutted on the internet portal. But as Elsa said, not before tomorrow evening.
Yeah, I can't.
Thank
My
you.
problem is I'm going to go to